called Saturday night's game in Los Angeles, and like I get to sit courtside and watch Nikola Jokic play, and I get to sit courtside and watch Jamal Murray's bag, and I get to sit courtside and watch LeBron. It's just fun. It's just fun. And I think with Jokic right now and the Denver Nuggets, it feels like they've hit another gear. You know, Malone told us in the pregame, he said they lose those 3 games coming into All-Star break, and Jokic sent like a group text, like, you know, unsolicited. Just nobody told him to do it. He sent a group text just about the second half of the season. Think back to last year. They secured the number 1 seed. They got a big win against Memphis, and then they kind of punted the last few weeks of the regular season. Seems like we're seeing the exact opposite of that happening right now. They're 6-0 since the break. The defense has been outstanding. Jokic has been nuts. He's been nuts. 25 points a game, 14 rebounds a game, 12 assists a game, 1.8 steals, 1.0 blocks. We talked about his defense last week. Look, I think it's time. Like let's have a real MVP discussion. We're past the 60 game mark, much less the 50 game mark. With me in the MVP discussion right now, I think there's 2 guys that have separated themselves, and I would probably put 3 guys in the next tier. And the 2 guys that have separated themselves to me are Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The next 3 guys to me are Giannis for sure. Bucks up to second place. They're 40-21. He's been awesome. I'm going to get into some of these advanced stats, which typically are the sort of the harbinger for the MVP. The stats most correlated with MVP. I would put Luka in there, although Dallas, after a great stretch, now has lost some games. They're in 8th place, 2 games back of 6th. And I would, of course, put Tatum in there. I think Boston fans across NBA Twitter right now are like, why isn't Tatum getting any love? Okay, I'm giving him some love. Like, he's in the MVP discussion. He's in the top 5 to me for sure. I think he, in some ways, the narrative piece hurts with him because, you know, they have such a fucking good team and they're so complete. But he's having a sick season. The pull-up threes, the playmaking. We've seen, like, he's improved. He's improved. So those are my 5. Want to get your thoughts on that, and then I'll get into some of these sort of advanced stats.
I think that's a fair 5. I think just the bottom of that second tier or entering the third tier is like where a lot of the fun discussion pieces come. I put, fun in air quotes, where you have your Donovan Mitchells, you have your Kevin Durant's and other guys like that. You can kind of argue for 5. I'm very much with you in that Shai and Jokic seem to be the top 2 in whatever order. And I do kind of wonder, I think about something that Zach Lowe said often on his pod, to where when he's doing like hair splitting for 3rd team All NBA or stuff like that, where it comes to defaults to, actually, I think this guy's just better. And I do wonder, as this race is super close between Jokic and Shai, in my opinion, how many of the voters are going to default to, yeah, but like, Jokic just won a title. Or I know, like, if we're just starting a draft or something, I think Jokic is better than Shai. And that may just be a tiebreaker. But you look at some of the advanced stuff, like Shai quietly has the league in EPM. He has the lead in like the cumulative stat of estimated wins. And obviously you're averaging over 30 points per game with this kind of efficiency while also providing this kind of impact defensively. Like, it's hard to argue against that while the Thunder are currently the number 1 seed, but also Jokic isn't far off in the advanced stuff. He's averaging, as you said, a triple-double post All-Star break. I think he is at worst the second best player in basketball. And I think most would agree, like, he's the top dog right now. And the Nuggets are rolling to this degree. And we talked about the defense with him. I'd probably say like Shai by 2 strands of hair right now for number 1, but Jokic is right there. He's been insane.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad not because I have an opinion right now, because again, I wanted to sort of qualify the tiers because I will vote, I think, this year. I assume I'll have a vote. They tell you, a couple weeks out. And I will wait till the very last minute. I did it last year. I will wait. I did it with All-Star this year. I will wait to the very last minute. And I'm glad you said Shai, though, because coming off of that Wemby conversation, I just didn't want all of Oklahoma City to hate us. You know what I mean? I just didn't want that.
I was thinking yesterday, like we had the Thunder conversation super early in the year, or maybe it was heading into the season, and you asked like, "What's the high end for OKC?" And I said front court. Front court. I bet. I got
home court in the playoffs.
Yeah, home court.
Top
home court in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
And when you said that, you meant fourth seed. Just to be clear, like that's what I took away from when you saying that. I don't think you meant the number 1 seed in the West. Right.
I did like 1 seed was lower on the totem pole. I did think like 2 or 3 would be attainable for them, especially like just regular season. They'll turn out the wins and then we'll get into the postseason questions. But like to that point, like, no, I didn't see 1 seed as like a serious achievement for them this year. They have blown my expectations out of the water. And I feel like I've been like the Thunder guy outside of Thunder media, naturally. I feel like I've been that guy for the last 2-3 years. I've been super impressed with what they've been able to do. Like watching them against Phoenix last night and watching Shai just take over after a slow start in the first quarter. He just, we talked about Wemby and his pull-up threes. Shai suddenly knocking down 40% of his pull-up threes is also a terrifying thought, considering what he's doing on pull-ups inside the arc, what he does as a driver, isn't getting to the free throw line as much as he did last year, but still gets to the free throw line a lot. Good luck defending that dude. And again, the defense has been so fun. Like the event creation is there, the deflections, the on-ball steals, some of the passing lane stuff. Like watching teams try to post up Shai is becoming one of my favorite games within the game. Because if you're able to get him and you have a bigger body, you can move him. But it takes so much effort to even attack that mismatch because he's so good at like slithering around as you're throwing the pass and getting steals that way. He's just a ton of fun to watch on both ends of the floor.
I think it's the impact for Shai. Well, the hair splitting is going to be insane, but I think it's the impact and the fact that he's continued to build throughout the entire season that really elevates his case to me as far as developing a counter all the time. You think you have one thing figured out. You don't because, okay, we're going to move the ball. I'm going to drive left. I'm going to set you up. I'm going to stop, pop right there. You want to go under on screens, you're going to go 3. And now you have all of this in your brain with the best driver volume-wise in the league who continues to straight line drive and hit you. And so that being so impactful for a team that didn't have the same expectations is tough. Then you also have Jokic, who's doing this every single night for a machine in Denver and grabbing that mindset. It's something JJ mentioned as far as Jokic sending that text. Usually every year we kind of get the Coach Michael Malone rant at some point, right? Like, hey, these guys these guys, do you want to win a championship? And now it's Jokic doing it. And to me, in my head, I'm like, that's some growth right there. And so I don't know, like the hair splitting between those two is gonna be nasty in particular. The 5 overall is a really great list. I feel like Tatum gets hit probably because these guys are doing some historic statistical things to a degree, fair or unfair. Like Giannis with 30, 10, and 5, shooting 60% from the field. When have we seen that?
There we go.
No.
So you know what I mean? And so I think Tatum deserves credit for not only improving, but improving within the context of a stronger unit to where we have these nights where 6 minutes in, Jayson Tatum hasn't taken a shot. You look up at halftime, Jayson Tatum has 22 points. That's not necessarily his fault. That's, hey, I'm really good. I'm going to do and take what I do well and elevate this team. So I think it should be a fun conversation. I have a feeling it's going to get nasty quick, but I think that all 5 of those are deserving. And then, you know me, I like to go with the subs 6, 7, 8, 9. Like you ready for the
You just want to let everybody be in the MVP conversation. I get it. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to offend anybody.
Have you seen that guy's mentions? I don't blame him.
Guys, have you seen my mentions? Fuck out of here, dude. You don't want
I wouldn't blame you either.
Some days I'm like, you know what? I see in that bottom right corner, I see that 20 plus. I see that little 20 plus. I'm not gonna click on it. I'm not gonna click on it. Yeah, that's all reasonable, guys. It's all reasonable. It's interesting because I called a couple Clippers game recently, and I've referenced Kawhi having no holes in his game, and with Shai this year, I'm comfortable saying that about him. No holes in his game. The way he's shot the ball off the dribble, obviously we knew he was a good mid-range scorer. Knew he was a good post-up player, but the three-point stuff has been awesome. Can't guard him. Can't guard him. Real quick, just on some of the basketball reference stuff, I know you referenced the EPM stuff. Win shares per 48, which is a stat that's oftentimes very correlated with who wins MVP. Jokic is number one, and you said splitting hairs. He's number one with 1,000th percentage of point higher than Shai in win shares per 48. Giannis third. Box plus minus, Jokic one. Sizable lead on Shai and Luka. Giannis 5. Jokic number 1 in offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus, and value over replacement player. Total win share, Shai number 1 by a hair. This time, if my math is correct, 1/10 of a point over Jokic. Giannis 3, Luka 4, Sabonis 5. Shout out to Sabonis, who's having an all-NBA season. And Tatum is 8. I was talking about Wembanyama and the thinking part. There's, I think, a handful of players that think the game at a higher level than anyone else. Jokic is one of those guys. I know, shout out to Rob Perez, who on Twitter posts amazing stuff. Great follow. But there was a play late in the game where they're slowing the ball down. It's like, let's score here and let's end the game, essentially. And Murray brings it up the left side so they can get to their high two-man action. And Jokic is over in the right quadrant, and he's like pointing and directing traffic, and he's trying to get one of the offensive players to go to the right corner, get off the weak side, go to the right corner, which kind of leaves LeBron in this uncomfortable position if Jokic happens to catch it on the roll, which he does. LeBron's got a shooter in the left corner. He's got Aaron Gordon in the dunker. And Jokic catches it. He turns and spins. In the game, I thought he shot a jump hook. And he shoots a jump hook lob. He does actually sometimes. He shoots a lob sometimes to Aaron Gordon. It's the fucking coolest thing in the world. Like he's shooting a normal floater, and he'll just shoot a lob. This time he shot a jump hook to Aaron Gordon. It's that stuff that I just fucking love. It's like I'm playing chess. I'm manipulating the chessboard, which brings me to something that I've touched on before, but I want to use this opportunity to touch on it again. I thought about bringing this up during the broadcast. There's just not enough time and space to really talk about this. Joe Boylan, who was one of my player development coaches when I was in New Orleans, he's now with Minnesota and Chris Finch. He is a great dude. He's a little psycho, and I think he'll admit he's a little psycho, but he's super into the cognitive part of being an athlete. And he posted this thing the other day that I just fucking loved. And it's, what is basketball athleticism? And people get offended when I bring this up because it's like, oh, you're pointing out the white guys whenever you talk about like, oh, deceleration and not vertical jumping. Fine, that's not important. The point is, there's more to being a great athlete in basketball than just being able to jump high and run fast. Certainly part of it. So he had these, I think it's 11 things. Some are physical, some are cognitive, right? And it's like the vertical plane, right? Of course, jumping high. Jokic doesn't have that. Change of direction, agility, balance, coordination, mobility, strength, reflexes, stamina, change of pace, deceleration, right? I talk about deceleration all the time. Then the cognitive side, anticipation, pattern recognition, and spatial awareness. And with spatial awareness in particular, I think that's the advantage that certain guys have. He called it court mapping. And that's what Jokic was doing on that play. He was mapping the court. There was a clip when I was prepping for the game, guys, and I fucking rewound it like 6 times in slow motion. So they get to their 5-out delay. He's got the ball at the top. They've got good pressure on the ball. It was against the Warriors. Good pressure on the ball. And he's kind of half turned towards the right side of the basketball court. But he can't completely see Andrew Wiggins in the low man spot. And he's got a shooter in the corner. Two players on the right high quadrant get into a high split. Christian Brown ends up cutting back door. As soon as he cuts back door, he's not looking directly at the corner, but he's mapped out the court, as he so often does. He's mapped out the court. As soon as Christian Brown back cuts, he delivers a fucking bullet pass to the corner. And if you watch it in slow-mo, when he delivered the bullet pass, it's at the exact moment that Andrew Wiggins takes a step with his right foot towards the basket to tag the cutter. The spatial awareness and court mapping of Jokic is fucking absurd. Ball goes to the corner. Now it's a two-way stunt. Wiggins, by the way, he still gets a decent contest. Ball goes in, 3 points. There are so many times where Jokic does this. LeBron does this. James Harden does this. Luka does this. We brought up Tatum. Tatum's getting better at this part of his game, the court mapping. Again, this is part of being an NBA athlete. It's not just jumping high or running fast. It's the court mapping and spatial awareness. It's the balance. It's the deceleration. And I think about what makes the greatest players the greatest players. It's that most of them have nearly every one of these traits. Most of them do.